my calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious
It has begun!
Calm down, Doctor. Now is not the time for fear.
Trying to misbehave.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
Program complete. Enter when ready.
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News Movie Night, where we're actually trying a new kind of way to be able to do this formula, because usually I have a panel of 3 or 4 people discussing the exact same movie at that given moment, and usually that movie is either brand spanking new or it's quite a bit older. And in this case, well, we're starting up kind of a new little sub-chapter in it, because I'm your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drak. I hope everybody's having an awesome day when you're listening to this. And I'm being joined by my lovely wife, Andrea. Andrea, how are you doing? We're finally past vacation. It's warm enough for you. Now are you just dreading when the temperature starts to drop?
Yep.
Or in this case, you're more dreading that our kids are going to catch yet another bug and bring it in here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because in case people don't know this, we went on a week-long vacation out in St. George, which was great, by the way. Like, we both really enjoyed it. The problem was our youngest decided to bring a cold along with us.
Or had developed a cold.
So we were taking care of her, and then literally the day we're coming home is when we're all starting to come down with it. And we spent last week recovering from said illness, and this week we're kind of doing the same thing, but with different illnesses. But yeah, so we had a good time, but obviously we're recovering from that. And we're getting back into the regular swing of things, and it just so happens that one of the things we're doing specifically today was, while we were in St. George, we decided to catch up on a bunch of movies that we had wanted to see, but we had never had the time. And lo and behold, we're on vacation, so why not go do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the ones that we decided to do was the subject matter for today, which is Wonder Woman 1984. Because you and I both saw the first Wonder Woman movie. And would you like to really quick go over your thoughts on that one? Like, your thoughts watching that film?
I don't have very many thoughts.
I mean, did you like it? Did you hate it? Did it make you excited for a sequel?
Wonder Woman was just fine, for just a person who isn't into diehard cult.
I was gonna say Wonder Woman was fine for a Captain America ripoff.
No, I'm just saying
I'm kidding.
From
of course,
a casual person's standpoint who doesn't read every comic known to man.
Yes, but the one of the things that I love about the first movie is it is a literal ripoff of Captain America: The First Avenger, except it's in World War I.
Uh-huh.
And so that's enjoyable. But you liked it enough so that you were excited for a sequel, and you were excited to see them do more with the character, right? Because let me clarify this really quick. Did you know who Wonder Woman was? Like, not necessarily before this movie. Like, when did you find out Wonder Woman as a character? Was it before you had seen like a Justice League cartoon? Were you aware of that there was Wonder Woman?
I've only heard of Wonder Woman because
you'd never seen her.
Well, I probably only heard or seen maybe bits and pieces when my dad probably watched something like that, like the old days.
Yeah, the old show. But like before the movie, your probably first exposure would have been what, the Justice League cartoon? Probably the Justice League cartoon.
Probably.
I don't know if she showed up in the Superman cartoon. I know Wonder Woman didn't show up in Batman the animated series. So like that would have been probably your first exposure of seeing her going, "Oh, that's Wonder Woman." Kind of thing. And then you saw the movie and liked it. And obviously you liked seeing her in the Supreme Court case of Batman v Superman in regards to the Dawn of Justice.
Mm-hmm.
And all that. And so then we move into this one where she gets her sequel debut, or not sequel, debut, but like she gets a sequel. Patty Jenkins is back to direct it. Gal Gadot is back to reprise her role as Princess Diana. And really quick, let's just go over a quick synopsis of the plot before we start discussing positives and negatives. And so I'm getting this straight off of IMDb, which actually was user generated, not by the site itself. Diana Prince lives quietly among mortals in the vibrant, sleek 1980s, an era of excess driven by the pursuit of having it all. Though she's come into her full powers, she maintains a low profile by curating ancient artifacts and only performing heroic acts incognito. But soon, Diana will have to muster all of her strength, wisdom, and courage as she finds herself squaring off against Maxwell Lord and Cheetah, a villainess who possesses superhuman strength and agility. So this is kind of the synopsis for it, but we'll, unlike what we've done with like Geek News Anime Night and all that, I'm gonna try and crunch down the plot as much as possible. Then we can get into positives and negatives here. The whole premise is Diana is living incognito after the incidents in the first movie. They then, while she is doing her research job, discover the Dreamstone, which I think has shown up in comics, but I don't remember off the top of my head like when it was first done. But basically, it's a stone that grants wishes, and she comes across it, and so does her fellow researcher, who eventually becomes Cheetah, as well as Maxwell Lord, who is played by Pedro Pascal in this, is a failing businessman who is aware of the Dreamstone, and actually through, villain chicanery, basically wishes to become the Dreamstone. And that's kind of the primary villain of this film, is that Maxwell Lord, who is a prominent comic character, is basically going around granting people's wishes and then taking stuff from them through their wishes. And Wonder Woman has to stop him because every wish he makes basically makes things even more calamitously worse in the world, kind of thing. And so that's the plot. That's the premise of this film. And the other thing that we should also point out is kind of a little subplot, because it was in the trailers all over the place, is when Diana comes into access of this Dreamstone, before she knows what it is, she makes a tiny little wish on it, and it comes true. And that wish is that her boy toy, for lack of a better term, her love interest from the previous film, Captain Stephen Trevor, is brought back to life, and they are able to go on this adventure together. And yeah, so that's prime. But the primary focus of this is to defeat Maxwell Lord, who has become the Dreamstone and who is basically destroying the world with the Dreamstone, and also fighting off his cohort Cheetah. I can't remember her name in the movie. I don't even think it's the right one, but the coworker of Diana, who then becomes Cheetah.
When I saw her, she kind of, the first person that kind of popped in my head that I just kept, like, she just looks like the same equivalent to, like, Selena Kyle and Tim Burton's.
You're talking about, I want to say her name was Barbara, but I don't think that's right.
I thought it was Barbara.
Is it Barbara?
I don't know. I could be wrong.
So you're basically saying like she came off as like Selena Kyle to you.
She kind of reminds me of Selena Kyle.
Okay.
Or she's like this person who doesn't look like she's like, people appreciate her work and all that stuff, and she just wants to be something better and then ends up becoming. Yeah,
and that's actually a little bit of the animated series and what they did with Selena Kyle, because Selena Kyle, like in the comics, is way, way different. Very obsessed with cats. Also,
that's what
I believe the original origin of Catwoman is that she is a rich debutante that is bored and becomes a cat burglar because of that. I might be wrong about that, but I do know that there's an origin where they did that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, she just reminds me of Tim Burton's version of her.
Oh, and I've never seen it. So, that's going to be one of those movies that I'll probably have to tackle in Geek News Movie Night. And we've had our first cough break. How does it feel? So yeah, that's kind of the premise of the overall plot. So one of the things that I'm guessing you're saying is a positive is you liked the Cheetah character. Did you like how the Cheetah character kind of evolved throughout the movie? Because you're talking about like when you initially met her.
Oh yeah, I mean when she was just tired of what her life was like, but then she wished upon that stone.
Okay, so you liked the character development as it went on.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So what did you think of in the contrast? What did you think of Maxwell Lord as a character? Because you probably had never heard the name.
No, I
until now. He's a comic character, but I don't think he's ever shown up. Actually, you know what? I'm wrong. Now that I think about it, he did show up in Brave and the Bold, I think. But it was a minor role. But mostly people know Maxwell Lord through the comics. So, like, what did you think of Maxwell Lord? Because like Cheetah is the antagonist for Wonder Woman, but Maxwell Lord is supposed to be the villain of the movie.
Well,
and if he didn't look familiar to you, then I'm gonna have to smack you silly, honey.
What, the guy who played him?
No, how the character was played off.
Well, I didn't even compare that to what you were telling me. So.
Oh no, sorry, I'm closing the window. I'm not saying the comic stuff, but like, are you telling me that he did not look familiar to a certain media figure?
Well, I did not. That's what I try to leave that kind of stuff out of.
You try, but you know. here's the problem is unfortunately the director was not trying and you were. So kind of back on point, like what did you think of Maxwell Lord as a character, as a villain in this? Because he's supposed to be the big guy, I love how the advertisement of this film, like Cheetah was the built up antagonist. She was going to be the end one, and then they swerved us all by putting in Maxwell Lord. So
I wonder why they decided that way.
Probably because there isn't a whole lot that they could have done with Cheetah the way that they did her. Because Cheetah is an antagonist of Wonder Woman, but well, one of the things that I will say was very frustrating with this is that they changed Cheetah's origin, so they couldn't necessarily make her like the big villain. Instead, they had to make her the toady of Maxwell Lord because he was the big problem. Like, he was the Dreamstone. So yeah, so he was the Dreamstone. He was the guy who was destroying the world, not her. She was basically just kind of protecting him so that she could keep things the way that she wanted.
She wanted to keep her wish.
Okay. In contrast, how did you feel about Diana, like, in the film? The fact that she was still kind of maintaining that incognito presence and still, like, she was still going out and being Wonder Woman, but she wasn't, like, full-time doing that. She was kind of doing what we've all known her to do in the Justice League stuff, which is like, I have this full-time job, and then if I can, I go out and hero on the weekends, kind of thing.
Well, she had to learn to adapt, I'm sure, you know, living the life with...
Especially since they're adopting the concept that she cannot return to Themyscira, which is, like, so her homeland of Themyscira is forever cut off to her right now. So it's not like she can go back.
Why is that? Just because she...
She wouldn't be able to find it.
Huh?
She wouldn't be able to find it.
Oh, really?
This is from the first film. Like, Themyscira is shrouded in mist. So it's not able to be found again. Like, if you leave... And also it's got an enchantment on it, that if you leave, you can never go back. So, like, that's the other thing that they tried to do here is built in a lot of Diana's stuff, which is like, she is a woman apart. She can never return home. Now, ultimately, in the comics, they do let her go back. And
it's
and
been
all that,
forever
but
since I've seen the first film.
Yeah. She actually had, like, in order to be the Wonder Woman, she had to leave and permanently never see her mother again and never see any of them. Except for, I think they did in the Snyder cut of Justice League, they let her go back to Themyscira, but I'm not 100% remembering that. No, she didn't go back, but she saw the warning from Themyscira. That's what happened. She saw the warning from Themyscira and knew what it was. So that's what they did. But so positives of this film. What did this film do right in your eyes, Andrea?
You go first.
I asked you.
Yeah, but I don't.
My
know
list
any-
is short.
Well, of course your list is short
Why is that?
because you nitpick on everything.
Are you saying that I am incapable of enjoying it? I nitpick because there's a lot to nitpick about this film. That's why I'm saying, like, you're the one that is like, okay, check my brain at the door and go and enjoy it. Speak positively about the film.
All the fighting and stuff.
So you like the fight scenes. You thought the fight scenes were very well choreographed and
Yeah.
all that. What did you think of the plot, the Dreamstone destroying the world and all that? Or the lesson that they were trying to teach in all of it is like, it's great and all to want, it's great and all that to want it all, but sometimes you have to be content with what you have, kind of thing.
Well, that's the truth.
Even though this film was not content with what it had. I'm okay. Since I'm letting Andrea kind of talk the positives of this film because she's going to be the one that does it. I have a very short list of positives that were done here. I think that there was a couple of really good camera shots that were done. I think there were a few good moments of CG, and that's about it.
I mean,
That's about it.
I'm not a film buff, so I
No.
wouldn't-
Okay, let me clarify that really quick. You're not a film buff, but you're a film goer. You're a film fan.
Mhm.
And so like I love that people make this distinction of like, well, critics are incapable of enjoying anything. And that's not true because, well, as we'll get into some of the other movies that we actually did watch, I did find enjoyment in them.
Mhm.
Kind of thing. I can check my brain at the door, but if there are problems, I'm just not going to shut up about them. I'm not going to pretend that they don't exist. Kind of thing. So that being said, like my list is fairly short in that regard, and walking into this film, I probably knew more about the controversy surrounding it than you did. And just because, like, given the circles that I follow around Twitter and all that, I knew that it was shrouded in controversy, and some of the decisions that were made were hurting it. And ultimately, I do know that Patty Jenkins came out and called everybody who detracted against it a racist and a sexist and a homophobe and a transphobe and everything like that, when in reality it just looked like she couldn't take criticism, kind of thing. She couldn't take let me clarify that. She couldn't take constructive criticism.
And who was this?
Patty Jenkins is the director.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, nobody knew her up until the first Wonder Woman film. And like, she had done TV, but then she got Wonder Woman, hit that one out of the park, and I can literally tell you I do not believe this was directed by Patty Jenkins, because like we literally went from one film where it felt like, okay, she does understand the character. She understands like what the struggles that Diana goes through, and then we go to this and it's like 180. She does not understand the character in the slightest. So before I go into negative stuff, is there anything positive that you want to go over really quick, before we start talking about in my opinion, what this film did wrong, and anything that you had?
No, I didn't really have any qualms with it.
Okay. Sorry, give me a second. I was actually going to look this up, because I believe she was the director for this one. Here we go. Yeah, director is Patty Jenkins, and she also wrote it, along with Jeff Johns, like the first Wonder Woman.
I couldn't remember if Wonder Woman was able to fly in the animated series or comics or something.
She can, yeah. She can. It just depends on the comics that you go into, because I think eventually they just kind of realized that having an invisible plane was stupid, which is funny because this movie brought the invisible plane in and then later had her flying on her own. So it's just like, okay, make your decision. Do you want her to have the invisible plane, or do you not want her to have the invisible plane? Kind of thing. Because, like, I'll be honest, I've never liked the idea of the invisible jet. I thought that was always dumb. And considering that she's part of the great trinity of DC, look, I get it. Batman has a jet, but Batman made the jet. That's why that jet is cool. It just made sense with Wonder Woman to be flying just like Superman. Because in some cases, when you take the power set of Diana, there's not a whole lot of difference between her and Clark. And that's fine. That's fine. She is basically Superwoman without being Superwoman. With having like a different origin in magic as opposed to sci-fi, all that. So like, yeah, that's not necessarily my issue with it, but I guess I kind of want to get into this really quick before I get into the negatives here. Your thoughts on bringing, crap, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, Chris Pine back as Steve Trevor. Like, what did you think of all of the stuff that they did with Steve Trevor, where like he's in the 80s and, you know, the last time we saw him was in the 20s or 30s. That's the World War I era. And now he's seeing like all the cool innovations and developments that have happened, and also having like those relationship quirks and everything like that. What did you think about bringing Steve Trevor back in the way that they did?
Well, it makes sense if she made the wish. That's...
Well, I'm not necessarily talking about the wish, but like bringing him into the 80s and having him be like a fish out of water, and have Diana kind of bringing him back up to speed.
Well, that kind of makes sense if you were living in that era and then you died. And...
But what I'm saying is, was it annoying to you? Was it endearing? Because that can go either way. A lot of people could actually like get really annoyed with that. Like, here's the perfect example that I have. One of my favorite series, Angel, that Joss Whedon did, was that the main character, they did an episode at one point where Angel, a vampire, you know, can't go out in sunlight and all that stuff. Something happens and he is he in a fight with a demon and he becomes human again.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately the first thing that they do with this is like, oh, let's take all the things that as a vampire Angel has never been able to introduce to, has never been able to enjoy, and let him re-enjoy them. So like the first thing that they do is like, I feel like human. I feel like I can go out in sunlight and I'm hungry. And they immediately have him like raid the fridge kind of thing. And I always thought that was the most hilarious thing ever, because this guy's a vampire who has lived like 200 plus years, has never been able to enjoy ice cream. Like the way that they have vampires in this series is like, he doesn't enjoy anything other than blood kind of thing. Nothing else has taste to him. And so they do this. And then I come across a friend later who me and him are big fans of Angel. And he hated that scene. He hated it because it was annoying, because like, well, this is kind of detracting from the main plot of what we're dealing with. You know, like this demon made him human again kind of thing. So that's why I'm asking you, like, did that get annoying after a while, or was that just still enjoyable?
Oh, I found it funny. I mean, the guy wouldn't even know what everything was in that century, or you know how long it's been. So it's
well, he might know the basic stuff, but he might not know like, oh, because like now I'm trying to think of like instant ramen was a thing in the 80s. What was the thing he was microwaving that was? Oh, it was Pop-Tarts. He was enjoying Pop-Tarts because like he's like, oh, all I have to do is put it in this magic thing and it's warm, kind of thing. So like I can get where to some people that might have been annoying.
I know it would have been annoying, but it's reality. You know, a guy from World War I era or something, and all of a sudden they come to the, like more 80s or 90s, and you're like, it's like asking someone who came from the Stone Age and coming into the higher tech world that wouldn't even know.
Have you ever seen Bill and Ted's crap, what is the first one called? Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
Heard of it, but I've never
But you never seen it. Because that like they did that too, where they basically like Bill and Ted for their school report have to go and get a bunch of historical figures to be able to pass it so that they can achieve their future. And so the whole premise is like they brought a caveman, they brought Ben Franklin, they brought all these people into modern day and have them discover Slurpees for the first time.
I mean, it's like very similar to Power Rangers Dino Charge. I can't remember which one. It was the one where, you have this modern, place, and then there was a caveman that like survived like over 100 years, and he's living in that.
I know what you're talking about, but is that Dino Charge? I want to say that's the new one. The Dino Knights.
No. It's the one like, I think it's like...
They've done too many dinosaur ones.
I know. It's like, but it's like that same concept. He's like trying to learn everything about that age era when,
Yep. Once again, this makes an argument that we ought to do like a Geek News Marathon night for Power Rangers series. We need to get back to Power Rangers, Andrea.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually do need a really quick correct because I'm sure people are so happy about the tangent. I actually was wrong. So Patty Jenkins directed both Wonder Woman films. However, so she was on the writing team along with DC writer Jeff Johns on Wonder Woman 1984. I got that wrong. The original Wonder Woman was actually written by Alan Heinberg and Zack Snyder. So, but also an additional credit with, if I say this wrong, I'm sorry, Jason Fox. I hate it when you have a word like that where it's like a last name, but it actually could be a curse word if you think about it. So yeah, we have a completely different writing team, but we have the same director ultimately. And that might be why I have a lot of issues here, but okay, so we went into this. Let's get into the negatives. Is there anything that this film did, in your opinion, Andrea, that it did wrong? Any moments of the film that dragged? Anything that didn't feel relevant, or was too much of a takeaway from the main plot, or camera shots that were weird, fight scenes that were weird?
I mean, I didn't hate anything really, except it got a tad a bit annoying between the whole thing with Max Lord and his son, the stone being...
That's a legit complaint. Okay, go into that. Into that, because I have thoughts on that.
I don't know. It just
First of all, okay, Max Lord is being played by Pedro Pascal, who is a Hispanic American and somehow has an Asian son.
I mean, I didn't say
like they tried to make it sound like it was it was his natural son, but they never showed the wife. So I mean, the wife could be Asian, and that just happened. But I have an issue with that in casting. But go ahead, sorry.
I mean, I didn't hate the character, but it just seemed like it was just weird and out of place.
What I'm saying, people, is there's a difference between diversity and inclusion and continuity. If he is Hispanic and it just so happens that his wife was Hispanic, are they going to produce an Asian son? Biology would dictate no.
Maybe, I don't know, I was kind of torn between whether if I really, really wanted him to kind of be sort of redeemable at the end, or if I would have rather if the stone pretty much drove him insane that it ended up killing him somehow. I don't know. I guess that's just...
How did you feel about his relationship with his son throughout the movie? Confusing how? Like confusing in how he was handling it, or...
What was his goal on wanting to, did he really want to...
It definitely did feel like the son was an afterthought until the very end. I
don't know, like, what was he trying to prove to his son, aside from...
I don't think even I don't even think Jeff Johns and Patty Jenkins knew. Ultimately,
I don't know. I guess maybe I was thinking of this.
I'm glad somebody else had a problem with this, because that was a very weird plot point. Really weird.
It kind of almost felt like the same thing, like how even like kind of like similar to Shazam when you had the guy wanting the extra power or something. He ended up becoming the villain, right? Like he was so tempted by the stone or by something, and
I'm trying to remember who the villain even was in Shazam.
It was that kid that got into that him and his father or something got into a car wreck, and then he ended up going to that sacred place, and he ended up getting tempted by that stone or something.
Oh, and he wanted to go back? Because, like, the way you're kind of talking about this, I mean, like, the whole premise of Shazam was the fact that Billy Batson, who is a 12-year-old kid, becomes a superhero kind of thing. And so at that point...
Not that one, but the one before, the one that could have been the superhero, but ended up breaking the law.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They did have somebody else who was sent to the Rock.
Or something.
And Shazam deemed him unworthy.
Yeah, something. And then he ends up becoming this all-powerful thing.
Oh, God. I actually have to, like, refresh my memory on it. But...
And he ends up awakening the 7 deadly sins or something like that. Because that kind of reminds me of Max Lord in a way, where he's like...
Yeah, because they had... That's how they introduced the different other Shazams. Kind of thing.
Yeah, and then it just reminds me of Max Lord, who's like trying to gain power or something, and he tries to find some way to get in.
Yeah, I can't remember who the villain was in. It's been forever since I've seen that movie.
I know. It just feels like that's like a parallel.
Which is sad, because like we're coming up on a sequel, and we also have the Black Adam movie coming out from
maybe we need
The
to
Rock.
rewatch that or something.
Maybe.
Before we watch.
Let me actually see if I can. Who was the villain in that? Dr. Savannah.
Something like
I believe. Yeah, I think that was his name, and then he became the villain because he wanted the power of the Rock for himself.
Yeah, or something.
Yeah, I get what you mean. So sorry, go back to your point.
Because he like Max just sounded like, he was just having real trouble with his business. He wanted to find a way to be very successful and be a great...
He wanted to be the cool parent, but he kind of didn't want to be the cool parent.
So he tries to take the easy way out and then gets what he wants, and then ends up almost destroying the world. And
ultimately, he's better... this was actually something that legitimately irritated me, is that I think it would have been actually a better thing to send, a better message to send. And I get it. A lot of movies don't want to end this way, but like, if you consider that he was taking things from people, in particular at that time, like he was taking people's life force for all of their dumb wishes. And he was taking their life force and being healthy with it. Man, he really should have had like a final consequence where he went to go save his son, and ultimately his son didn't make it, and he has to live with that kind of thing, because that is what the Dreamstone took from him. Kind of thing, especially since we get the hintings that this Dreamstone is just like the work of Loki, roughly, like a chaos god. It's the makings of a chaos god in order to destroy the world.
Oh yeah, and especially, people had the ability to renounce their wish, but it just seems very weird for him to be allowed to renounce his, especially
since he was the Dreamstone.
It just seemed like, oh well, nothing
like either
happened.
He should have lost his son or he should have lost his life. Because if he renounced his wish, he was the Dreamstone. He should have just faded away like sand. Kind of thing.
Yeah, and especially, it just seemed like it was very odd. It was kind of a heartwarming point, but at the same time, it was kind of like, okay, you can't just go and ignore your son, and didn't seem like you cared about him, and all of a sudden, like let's forget this all happened, and let's become a happy little family, sort of thing.
Yeah. So, okay, so you had an issue with the father-son dynamic of Max Lord. Anything else that you had an issue with?
I'm kind of glad that, since it was kind of confusing at first when you saw the guy who was supposedly what Steve Trevor used as a body,
Yeah.
Glad that
that was the weird thing. In order to bring Steve back, they substituted him into another body.
Like he kind of
Now, I get it. Like, that's a monkey's paw kind of thing to do because you take away that person's life, but because he doesn't get to live his life, Steve Trevor does, but
yeah, I'm just glad in like get all the mixed confusions. Like from another person's perspective, you see a whole different person, but through Diana's vision, you see who he really looked like.
Yeah, like it took a while to kick in, and other people could still see him as somebody else, and that was weird. And they really needed some consistency there, because it actually was like if it took a while for it to take effect, kind of like how it did with Diana, that would make sense. But once he's Steve Trevor, he should have just been Steve Trevor to everybody.
Maybe it would have been.
Until the wish is renounced, and then he could revert back, and I don't have a problem.
But it would have been interesting if, if they were walking around and maybe there might be some people who could have known Diana and say, "Who's your friend?"
Mm-hmm.
And she would have to make up some excuse like, "Oh, this is a friend," like. But otherwise, it just seems like, man, nobody. I wonder if anyone would have known who he really was if he didn't look like some random person, from...
Well, I mean, like, that's how Diana treated him. He was just like a creeper, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's Steve Trevor out of nowhere. Which, I mean, that was a cool effect, but my problem was that there were still people, after he became Steve Trevor to her, there were still people seeing him for his original body. And going like, what? That's way too much of a continuity hiccup and creates way too much whiplash for viewers, in my opinion. And I get it. It's supposed to be the workings of a chaos god, but you really should have, like, for the sake of the film, Patty should have just said, okay, he is this person until Diana sees Steve Trevor. And then he is Steve Trevor, and everybody else sees him as Steve Trevor. We don't do this weird deal where other people are seeing different people. You just see Steve Trevor, and then as soon as she renounces the wish, he's back to whoever he was. Like, from a filming standpoint.
But it was kind of interesting that you see that same person at the end.
No, I thought that was appropriate.
having a conversation with her and...
I actually have a problem with that, ultimately, with what they did with Diana, but I'll get there. I thought that was appropriate, considering, he got body jacked, and so he gets to be absent from a good portion of the movie, so he got to have a nice little wrap-up, where he's back out, and he's, back in charge of his own life. He doesn't know what happened. I like that. I like that they did it, but the inconsistency was a real bothersome thing. Like, everybody should have just seen Chris Pine when he's there. Not the other body. Not in the mirror he looks like somebody else. Kind of thing. That, like, once Chris Pine's body takes over, it's Chris Pine's body. Kind of thing. Okay, anything else? Before I go into my laundry list?
Wasn't Cheetah originally from...
Yeah, they changed. So they changed the origin of Cheetah.
Yeah, wasn't she originally from where Diana was?
No,
no.
Here's the thing. They made some things right, and they made like some things accurate and some things not.
Mm-hmm.
And should I just go into this really quick? Like my issues with Cheetah, because her origin is part of it.
Sure.
So let me really quick. I'll pause the recording for just a second. I'm going to bring up the Cheetah origin. Okay, so there's actually been a couple of origins for Cheetah, but I'll go into one of the other ones that's well liked by people, because it's similar in its origin, for it. So Barbara Minerva, that's her name. Barbara Minerva, who plays Cheetah in this film, they basically made her out to be this nerdy researcher girl who is taken advantage of by everybody. She is the wallflower. She's a bear rug. Everybody takes advantage of her, kind of thing. And so her wish on the Dreamstone is that she becomes like Diana because she has now gained, like, the way that they do this is before the Dreamstone is discovered, Diana and her kind of come across each other and have an interesting day together, kind of thing, and get to know each other over coffee and sandwiches and everything like that. And so her dream is that she wants to be like Diana. And so she starts getting Diana's abilities, and through that, like, starts to gain a little bit of a power trip going into it. And then ultimately what they do with the Cheetah origin is that once we discover what this Dreamstone is, she then wishes upon Maxwell Lord to become an apex predator. So she basically wants to be everything that everybody she resents is to her. And that's how she becomes Cheetah. So in this one, she wants to become an apex predator so that at that point, nobody can ever make her a victim ever again. I have problems with this, but I'll get there in a second. So the origin for Dr. Barbara Maneuver is that she is a British archaeologist who was empowered by the plant god Urza Katar. Let me make sure I'm saying this right. Kartaga, giving her the ability to turn into a ravenous, cannibalistic cheetah woman. And she is a frequent villain of the Wonder Woman comic. The other one that I gave you when we watched this film was her original comics origin, which was basically like she took part in this arcane ritual that then turned her into this woman, like this man cheetah, basically, kind of thing. So, and I even asked you, like, I read you that origin and asked, which would you have rather seen? Could you answer that question really quick?
I mean, that would have been an interesting one to see, you know?
Yeah, no. I completely agree on this. Oh, crap. I really want that other origin to... Let's see... Oh man, it irritates the crap out of... Okay, so we're back. Sorry, I know I've been skipping a lot, but here was the one that I actually read to you, which was the first woman to become Cheetah was a woman by the name of Priscilla Rich, a 1940s era blonde, and she's the one that went through the arcane ritual that then became Cheetah, so that she could then contend with Wonder Woman. And the way that they actually did it was that Priscilla Rich was like a participant in the ritual, but was also the focus of the ritual. So that, like, she was going to be the focal point. All the powers would come down to her ultimately. And so at that point, they kind of made it out to be like, oh, well, you know, she's like Clayface, you know, she's kind of a victim of her own circumstances, but she also is this threat to Wonder Woman because this arcane ritual has made her into a cannibalistic cheetah. Like, she is a predator now. She's going to kill you and eat you, kind of thing. And I like that origin of Cheetah. I like the fact that they were going to do this character. And as soon as I saw it on this film, I went, what the fuck did you do wrong? Because basically what you did was you made an average, modern, everyday feminist gets superpowers, goes on a power trip, and then eventually gets to become a man-eating cheetah. Am I wrong on that?
No.
Because everything involving her power trip was exactly what modern feminists whine about on Twitter, Facebook, whatever, every day. I'm so sick and tired of being catcalled by men. I'm so sick and tired of only being acknowledged for my looks, but then I'm the one that comes out in the G-string and the really tight skirt, kind of thing. Like, everything that you could have done to prevent that, you did, and therefore you're blaming society because you did it. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what they did with Barbara Minerva, and it was infuriating because she was ultimately her own worst enemy. And one of the things that also was irritating to me with how they did Barbara is early on in the film, they do a past story of Diana where she is in her training and she has an opportunity to cheat to be able to overcome this great Olympian task and be able to win the task and be able to gain the adulation and all that of the Amazon people. And she ultimately does not win. And her mother, Hippolyta, has to come down and say, We don't do it that way. We don't cheat progress. We have to be like this other Amazon focused Astera, I think was what her name was, Asteria. We have to be like her because she wasn't willing to take any shortcuts. We have to do it that way, and this actually plays into this film because we have to talk about the Asteria armor that eventually happened here in the fight against Cheetah. But ultimately, like, there's nothing threatening about Cheetah in this film. She is a whiny bitch feminist who is pissed off at the fact that she is doing everything in her power to get noticed, and now that she is being noticed and we're being told that it's wrong that she's being noticed, she ain't having any of that shit. That's why she's the bad guy. That's why she's fighting against her basically her love interest at this point, Diana, because she has gone far beyond friendship. She's into the point of pure idolatry with Wonder Woman, or with Diana. And so at that point, then she starts to notice, oh, I've got super strength now. Oh, now I can take all those creeps who were catcalling me, and now I can kick the crap out of them. Congratulations, you are now the bad guy. You are now a greater monster than the drunk who is catcalling you.
Now you're the bully of...
You went from being bullied to being the bully. Wow, you are such a wonderful character to see in this fucking film. Okay, so that's one of my problems with it. And the Cheetah origin is, like, I even explained to you, like, this is the origin of Cheetah. And I think even the animated film kind of went in that... I kind of want to show you the animated film that they did, where they brought in Cheetah, and see if you like that better than this, because...
What was it called?
Oh, Wonder Woman... I can't... It's like Wonder Woman Origin or something like that. It's the sequel to the animated film that they did for it.
Because I've seen a lot of different...
This is a recent one with the recent DC animated universe, which is doing so much better, in my opinion, than any of the stuff. Even in the Snyderverse, it's doing way better.
Then maybe I will have to look.
Wonder Woman Animated was literally what it was called.
Maybe
or no, hold on, I might be wrong. Wonder Woman Animated film. Crap, what was it called? It could be Wonder Woman Bloodlines. Gods and Mortals. That's the comic that was adapted for it. Wonder Woman Bloodlines. That was what it was called. So that's the one that debuts Cheetah. I'm kind of tempted to watch that with you now and see if it's any better in how it handled Cheetah in her origins. So another problem that I have a laundry list of problems, and a lot of it was with the characters. Jeff Johns and Patty Jenkins can go suck a fat dick, because you guys cannot write these characters to save your life, as far as I'm concerned, because you even took the character that you nailed in your previous film. Granted, Patty wasn't writing it. You took that character and you wrecked Diana in this, because you basically made her petulant and wanty. You tried to make her into an average everyday woman, and the problem is that Diana is anything but an average everyday woman. Not every woman has been created from clay. All right, just saying.
I forgot she was made out of clay.
Well, the movie didn't even go over that.
I know, but I forgot she.
Yeah, she's made from clay. Because there were no men on Themyscira.
Well, yeah, that's why I remember seeing something similar.
Yeah,
to
Hippolyta
that.
made her and then prayed to the gods that this clay sculpture became her daughter, and it became
probably one of the Justice League or one of the animated episodes I remember.
Yeah, I think the Justice League animated series goes into Diana's origin. So at that point, like, you have that moment, but here's my primary problem with Diana is if this was actually Diana of Themyscira, we would not have had a conflict at all in this film when it came to the realizations of the Dreamstone. This is the thing that irritated me the most, is that the second that we find out what the Dreamstone is, what it did, how it's destroying the world, immediately Diana, her reaction is like, oh crap, if I'm partially responsible for creating this problem, and if I renounce If I renounce my wish, I lose Steve. I can't lose Steve. Steve is everything to me. I have not been able to survive these last 40 years without Steve Trevor and be able to continue to be Wonder Woman and all that. No, bullshit. You did survive without Steve Trevor. And Steve Trevor's probably proud of you for doing that. If this was actually Diana, there would have been no conflict because she literally would have said, oh, this is what this does. I'm sorry, Steve. I renounce my wish. And you created false conflict out of this in order to make this like it's a hard thing for Diana, but also maintain that, she understands that balance in the world must be kept. But then you made her as petulant as Barbara Minerva in this movie?
Well, it makes...
I can't lose Steve. How on earth did I make it through those 40 to 60 years without him?
Well,
you did.
Well, Steve was the only one to knock some sense into her to actually...
Yeah, and by the way, for the record, that should never have happened. Because Steve Trevor, in the comics and in the previous movie, would have looked at this and went, like he did. He's the only one I don't have a problem with, by the way. Chris Pine, you did a fucking good job. Because he literally looked at this and went, no, you have to renounce this wish. I have to go back to the afterlife. Mm-hmm. That's the only way that this gets better. So Steve Trevor was more Steve Trevor than Princess Diana of this film. Fuck you, Patty Jenkins. You don't get this character.
It's like, sure, we had a great time catching up and all that, but it's time to end this day and move on with our lives.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like, okay, if this was actually Diana,
mm-hmm.
and Diana discovers this is the Dreamstone, this is what it does. I have wished upon the Dreamstone, and I've thus helped to create this chaos. Okay? When we talk to DC Trinity, there's a reason that we bring up Diana, because Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman all embody one aspect of what makes a superhero great. Superman embodies hope, which is appropriate because they basically not redid his origin, but they explained it, that the S on his chest is the symbol of the House of El, which in their language means hope. So he is the symbol of hope. Batman is the symbol of justice. And therefore, like, all of the things that he has done in his character arcs is justice. Even when that means that, when the Joker goes to Arkham for the 30 billionth time, he doesn't die, because that wouldn't be just. Killing the Joker is not going to bring back all the lives he's taken. Mm-hmm. He is the embodiment of justice. Diana is the embodiment of truth. Truth. So when you realize the truth, what do, Andrea? Do you lie to yourself, or do you fix it? But that's not what Diana did in this film. She lied to herself. I can fix this without having to renounce my wish. And that's why I'm saying, if this was the legit Diana, the second she realizes what the Dreamstone is and what she has to do, she'd be like, I'm sorry, Steve. I'll see you soon. I renounce my wish. There would have been no conflict. She would have immediately gone out to go and get her Asteria armor, which looked dumb as fuck. I'm just going to go ahead and say that.
It didn't look that bad.
It looked bad to me. It looked horrible to me.
Why?
I'll get there in a minute. But, like, there wouldn't have been any conflict in that decision. She would have renounced him and renounced the wish and immediately gone to Maxwell Lord. But that doesn't make good movie storytelling, does it? Actually, it does, but, Patty Jenkins doesn't know that. And then let me get into the heart of the matter, the thing that everybody had a complaint about in this film. I'm glad you had a complaint about it too. Maxwell Lord. Oh, I'm sorry. Donald Trump. That's what they did. Patty, are you butthurt that Trump was president for 4 years? It's clearly not evident. Okay, so there's a couple of reasons that this is irritating to me. Maxwell Lord was actually an interesting character in the comics and had a lot of stuff to be able to go off of. He was basically the guy who funded the Justice League. No, well, not the Justice League, but because, we've like that's been covered. Batman kind of funded the Justice League. But then we had other teams like the Justice Society where Maxwell Lord stepped in as a businessman and funded that. Because he basically, the way to look at Maxwell Lord, do you remember Incredibles 2? The one guy who was really, really, really rich and wanted to bring supers back? That's Maxwell Lord. Okay? That's how Maxwell Lord is. What's cool is they eventually made Maxwell Lord into a villain through some storylines, basically saying that even though he did all this and we're totally okay with him being a businessman funding superheroes, secretly he had a hatred for them. And I can't remember the legit reasons why he had the issue with it, but in his plotline as a villain, he basically tried to make superheroes irrelevant, like through lawmaking that they could not do their job, ultimately. And funniest thing about that, Maxwell Lord, at the end of that, is killed by Wonder Woman. It's like the first time that they've ever had her kill anybody. And she kills Maxwell Lord. And the main reason that she kills him is because he actually, a couple of heroes came across his plot and he silenced them, kind of thing. So, like, to her, it was justified. But you had this really great character.
Well,
none of that was used in this version of Maxwell Lord.
Yeah, well, that's interesting that he's funding that, and yet he hates them. So it's like, why?
Well, again, I don't remember all the details of it, and we're talking DC here, years and years of character development, and so like they justified it, and it actually did work to some extent. I'm still, like, me personally, I'm still not happy with Diana killing him, because Diana just wouldn't do that. Like even if he had killed off Blue Beetle or other people, like he killed off one of the Blue Beetles and all that.
Was it like she intentionally killed him?
Intentionally killed him, like executed him, if I remember correctly.
Otherwise, I'd be like, unless he ended up killing himself.
she executes him and then basically goes into some kind of imposed exile because, and by imposed exile, like they went through this time where they decided to rebrand Diana as like a secret agent kind of thing. And so they basically said, well, I'm no longer deserving of this title of Wonder Woman. I'll go do this instead. And they tried to do like this darker, angstier Wonder Woman that ultimately, didn't pan out. Because it's almost like they forgot the virtues and origins of Diana Prince. But back into this one. This irritated me in such a huge way because you had this great character that you could have done something with that had, much like Cheetah, where you had backstory, you had origin, and you could have done that. No, what they did instead was they decided to take the Hollywood depiction of how Donald Trump is. All right? Not the Donald Trump that everybody knows and like that is well documented. No, this is the bumbler Donald Trump that Hollywood and the Democrats literally spent 4 years trying to convince people of was Donald Trump, that he was an idiot that basically failed his way into success, ultimately. And that's how they tried to paint this. And it's so dumb. And do you want to know why people didn't buy that? It's because it was such a caricature, it didn't make sense. Do you want to know why it didn't work with Maxwell Lord? Because it was such a caricature, it didn't exist. There's no way it could have. I'm not passionate about this or anything. That's my problem with it, is that it didn't even feel like Maxwell Lord. It didn't even feel like a believable villain who would have gotten their hands on Cthulian powers to destroy the world. It felt like I'm butthurt that Donald Trump was president for 4 years, and therefore he's the bad guy.
Maybe that's...
Not even Diana Prince would have considered Donald Trump a bad guy.
Makes you kind of wonder, though, if they were deciding on who was going to be the main villain, either between Cheetah Girl or
I am thoroughly convinced at some point a swerve happened, and they decided, we fucking hate Trump. Don't we fucking hate Trump? We fucking hate Trump. Let's go ahead and make Trump the villain.
Well, no, I mean, it's kind of like, well, maybe they were kind of bouncing between these two characters, and they're like, well, they couldn't get anything to
I don't
work,
think they were bouncing at all. I think that they had Cheetah, And they went, oh, yeah, this is going to be really good. Oh, wait, but we fucking hate Trump. Let's go ahead and bring Trump into this. How do we do that? Oh, well, there's this character, since Jeff Johns was there, because Jeff Johns has obviously lost a lot of his writing credit over the last few years. Jeff Johns knew the lore. And so he's like, well, there is this character named Maxwell Lord that is in there. Let's just make this Trump character into Maxwell Lord. Nobody will care. Fuck you, Jeff Johns.
I mean, do you like a lot of these types of movies where they decide to put more than one villain in at the same time?
If it's done well, I don't have a problem. Like that this has been one of my biggest complaints with the Spider-Man films is like, okay, Spider-Man 3 is technically the first one that had two villains. You had Sandman, who was originally conceived of in that, and then you had Venom, who was shoehorned in and basically made to be the bigger villain, even though a majority of the story was written around Sandman. And so in that case, Sandman feels like an afterthought in his own movie and thus loses a lot of that power. And Venom looks like an idiot because he's been shoehorned into the plot. I think, so to answer your question, do I think it can be done? Yes. Yes, I do. It's hard, but ultimately it takes story, build up, all that stuff to be able to do it properly, and you have to balance them.
True.
But the problem is that in a majority of these cases, they aren't balanced. In Wonder Woman 84, that's probably the closest to a balance there was, but then it's shortly lost when Cheetah basically becomes the toady bodyguard of Maxwell Lord.
Maybe it's like one of those things. It's like,
because like with Barbara Minerva, you have look, my issues with her being a bitchy little feminist aside, you have an actual villain origin going on here. Maxwell Lord, aside from him not really paying attention to his kid, you don't really have that.
yeah,
You don't.
It just seems like,
He's a walking monkey's paw that is put in there for contrivance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have to explain the world coming apart. Oh, well, we'll have Maxwell Lord go over to this Arab dictator and take his security team.
Well, it's hard when you got...
Oh, yeah, by the way, DC films, if you're going to use DC territories, you need to make sure that you don't confuse them with other places. Because in DC, Bialia is not Egypt. Sorry. Done.
Okay.
I hate it when they do that, where, like, at least the Marvel Universe, it's based in New York City. But you actually have other lands because they didn't want to, they wanted to have their own fictional things going on in those areas. So Bialia kind of becomes like this default Arabic area. And instead, they make it, they actually call it in this movie Bialia, and then they go into, oh, well, this is Egypt. You just called it Bialia!
Mm.
Consistency! This film is not you! Sorry.
Are you done?
Not really, but
Okay.
well, go ahead.
I was going to say that it's really hard when you got too many villains in the same film, especially who's going to get the most story plot elements.
Because let's actually think about this, like, in terms of villains. Okay, so Spider-Man 3 had Sandman and Venom.
Well, yeah, because...
Then Amazing Spider-Man 2 was the next one that did it, and they had Electro and...
Electro and...
Green Golem was in there, but he wasn't really a villain. He was like Rhino. Rhino was the other one that was in there. And Rhino and Green Golem were only there to hype up a Sinister Six movie that ultimately didn't happen. But yeah, that suffered, right?
Well, and it's hard because, you put together like big villains, and yet they have to make the choice and like, okay, who's gonna get who gets the bigger focus, who gets demoted as like the underling.
And the way that they do it is just like, okay, who's the villain and who's the antagonist? And I'm sorry, those are the same fucking thing. I agree with you, but what I'm saying is, like, in 84, they actually did have a setup for a good balance between the two of them, because you were showcasing Maxwell Lord doing all the stuff that he was doing, and you were showcasing Barbara Minerva's slow descent into being a predator.
That's true.
Kind of thing.
That's
so
true.
you had that, but then you took it away when she became the bodyguard. If she had just been like her own thing, you might have had that balance.
Well, yeah, if she didn't have...
Might have had it.
Well, yeah, if she didn't decide to go and say, she could have just easily have tried to defeat Diana instead of, saying, well, I'm going to join forces with him and keep you from getting to him.
And for all the people that want to bring up things like the Batman films, no, there was no balance between the Riddler and Two-Face in Forever. There was no balance between... there was maybe a closer balance between Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze in Batman and Robin. I would argue it wasn't entirely there. So no, those are bad examples.
It was just sometimes always nice once in a while when you have a superhero movie that only focused on maybe one villain.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and you can do that. Like, you can, like, Amazing Spider-Man 2 had the potential of basically saying that Rhino was the villain of the day, and that, his case was still kind of ongoing because you would see it in newspapers in the film, but then they could focus on Electro and make him the main threat. And that would have worked because it shows that Spider-Man's just, doing his thing. Mm-hmm. But the problem was that they then decided to do Green Golem and Sinister Six, and then the balance was wrecked.
Green Golem.
Where they tried to do Green Goblin, but in my opinion, because they made they brought Harry Osborn into Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Oh,
and then he comes out and he's like, I'm the Green Goblin, and that's why we all call him the Green Golem.
Okay,
well,
don't get me confused. If there was actually an actual,
I'm not. I'm literally joking about the character because that wasn't the Green Goblin.
I know that you're joking, but I could have never known that.
Yeah. So yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, you could have had that balance in this. But I see your point, and that's why I'm giving you that, is they could have had it if they had stayed as separate entities, but they didn't. Because you could have easily had that final fight happen without Cheetah working for Maxwell Lord. She had gained such a resentment for Diana, she could have just hunted her down.
She could have been
and
like, you know what?
fine. I just want to eat you,
No, she could have been like, I'm tired of living in your
Not
shadow.
in the porn sense, people. I just want to eat you as in eat your heart.
No, she'd be like, I'm just tired of living in your shadow because everyone acknowledges you, and just wanted to take her vengeance that way.
And she would have been a much better villain if you'd done that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't do that, did you? Nope. Instead, Donald Trump had to be your villain. I'm not going to let this go because I see exactly why people had that complaint, and it is a worthwhile complaint. Maxwell Lord that's not Maxwell Lord. That's Donald fucking Trump in this film. That is Hispanic Donald Trump.
The way he was acting mostly at the
And I have to ask this honestly. Hey, Pedro, is this how you're going to portray Joel in The Last of Us?
It just seems like at the beginning he just seemed like a petty person.
And he is.
Because he's like trying to find the way to make the $1 billion and like take the scams of who knows.
Yeah.
By the looks of it.
Well, let's. I don't want this podcast to be super long, but there's lots to complain about with this film, and I'm like, you were giving me crap earlier, but like even you're kind of acknowledging it had problems. But like, which would you have rather seen on screen? Because I know both got complaints. Maxwell Lord and how he was portrayed in Wonder Woman 84, or Ares as he was portrayed in Wonder Woman. You remember who Ares was, right?
Yeah, I can.
He was the diplomat who was trying to create peace, but behind the scenes, because this is how Ares works, behind the scenes he was fueling the war effort.
Yeah, it's been forever since I've seen it. So.
Yeah, but which would you have rather seen? A subtle manipulator who's manipulating things and makes himself look to be a good guy, or Maxwell Lord in Wonder Woman 84? Sorry, Maxwell Trump. We can't call him Maxwell Lord right now. He's not that. So it's either I call him Donald Trump or I call him Donald Lord or Maxwell Trump kind of thing, because that's who he is. Like, this isn't Maxwell Lord, Patty Jenkins, and Jeff Johns. Go fuck yourself.
Well, Ares by a long shot.
Ares was amazing. I love that the main complaint that everybody had with Ares was that it was, I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy who plays Lupin in Harry Potter.
David Thewlis.
David Thewlis. And he had his Lupin mustache. And then they decided to do the CG Ares, which is like him with the big God of War like helmet on there, but you can still see his mustache, and that's the only complaint that people had was, oh man, that mustache looked really dumb, but he was still a really imposing villain, right? Oh yeah, totally, but that mustache was really dumb. Like, yeah, I could deal with a dumb mustache over this.
Sorry, Kratos, but Diana might have beaten you to it. Just kidding.
Sorry, who?
Sorry, Kratos.
Oh, yeah, well, you know, kind of thing. But I actually no, she didn't, because Ares is never truly destroyed in Wonder Woman mythos. That's one of the things I actually like, is like Greek gods in the DC universe are like Dracula. They always find ways to come back. So that being said, yeah, those are my primary complaints with this. This is not a Wonder Woman story. Wonder Woman 1 was totally a Wonder Woman story, and that was amazing, and this is an insult to everybody who worked on the first Wonder Woman film, ultimately, as far as I'm concerned, and primarily a lot of it is the writing, the character development. It does not make sense in the slightest. Nobody's acting the way that they should, except I will give the award over to Steve Trevor, because he actually was the one who was making sense. Mm-hmm. It's just the cameras that weren't, because they kept on portraying his other body. Dude, even Diana, like, I wanted to get into this because you brought it up. The last scene where we got Diana meeting the body that Steve Trevor stole. And even then, she isn't Diana, because, like, Diana would have looked at him and would have been empathic and said, you know what? I spent, this amount of time in your apartment, and we hijacked your body and we went on adventures together. Let me go buy you a cup of coffee, kind of thing. And she brushed him off. Uh-huh. She brushed him off.
You would think...
No, F you, Diana. You go buy him a cup of coffee.
You might as well get to know the guy.
Yes!
I mean, what's the harm in that?
Like, that's the lesson that was being learned. You isolated yourself too much. How about you embrace the world again? Nope, can't do that. Nope. Because we can't have a woman talking nice to a man, especially a white man, now can we? This is, yeah. Sorry, guys. Like, I know that I'm beating the same dead horse, but it bears repeating here. That's why this film doesn't work.
I can't remember what he was asking Diana.
Oh, they were just talking.
Okay.
He's like, yeah, I don't remember the last couple of days were, but... because it was also the holidays, remember? It was also Christmas. And so he's like, well, you have a Merry Christmas. You do the same.
I thought maybe...
And she kind of looks back at him and then goes back to what she was doing. Sorry, but the real Diana would have been like, hey, you want to go get a cup of coffee? That's what she would have done. Cup of coffee does not mean fucking date. Mm-hmm. Cup of coffee means, let me go buy you a cup of coffee. Mm-hmm. By your logic, cup of coffee meeting date. So what you're basically telling me is that Barbara Minerva was completely led on by Diana
I mean, for all you know, that guy
inadvertently.
Maybe for all you know, maybe that guy could have been visiting from out of town. Why didn't you just know?
So what you're telling me is that if she bought her a sandwich, that officially means they're in bed together? Mm. Is that what you're telling me? Your definition of sex is way off, leftists. Anyway, so those are issues that I have. The other one, the other two big issues that I want to bring up here is you needed to decide, did you want the invisible jet or did you want Wonder Woman flying? Because it made absolutely no effing sense, and it took away from Steve Trevor's character that you decide to do the invisible jet, which, by the way, yeah, Diana's never had that magic to turn things invisible. That was dumb. But you needed, what they ultimately needed to have happen is that, after she renounces her wish and she's feeling bad about it, she just discovers, oh yeah, by the way, I'm also this godly woman. I need to go save the world. I discover how to fly. Kind of thing. That would have been the way to do it. The invisible jet was pointless.
Well, I'm kind of glad they at least did it that way as opposed to, oh, by the way, I have an invisible jet. Let's go take that. They just went and borrowed a plane, and she just...
See, if they just borrowed the plane and didn't make it invisible, I would have appreciated that scene a lot more. But then they had to do the whole, I've been messing around with the magic of Themyscira and I think I can pull it off. No, bullshit, never happened. As far as I'm concerned, if you had just stolen a plane like you did in the previous film, I would have been okay with it.
Okay.
I would have been okay with it. But then you could have had her discovering her ability to fly, and that would have been great. That's why I'm saying, like, you needed to decide, did you want the invisible jet or did you want her to fly? And then you should have stuck with that. Because, like I said, you didn't have to have the jet turn invisible for that to be a good moment. You just wanted to have that because reference back to Wonder Woman lore. The other thing that I also have a major complaint with, and I feel bad for the original woman who played Wonder Woman in the TV show, because this was her cameo. So we brought up what is her name? Oh crap, I can never remember her name. Linda Carter. Linda Carter gets a cameo in this, and the cameo that they did was, we mentioned in the Diana story, she was told about Asteria, who is this wonderful Amazon who apparently held back all the men as Themyscira disappeared into the mists, and was able to do that and also live in the world of men. And so one of the things that Diana did when she came to the world of men was she discovered where Asteria's legendary armor was. Here's my primary complaint with it, Andrea. It was an eyesore. There was way too much gold on that thing, and the wings made no sense, because the wings were supposed to curve around and be a shield, and then what you decided to do was showcase this in the middle of the cheetah fight. So how's Wonder Woman going to throw a punch in that eyesore of a costume?
Not to mention how it got damaged that easily.
Yes.
If it's supposed to be some...
If you had just okay, you use the wings to get to the island and then they lose their meaning and you lose the wings. That would have made it so much better, because the costume at least had a balance at that point of, what was it? It was gold and red.
Something like that.
And I think there was a little bit of blue in there too. Kind of like the Wonder Woman costume. If you had done that. But no, we had to have the cheetah fight lose a lot of its drama because you decided to fold the wings around you, and it literally looks like somebody took a giant thing of duct tape and put it around Diana. It makes no sense that she, as a warrior woman, that she would keep this on her to fight Cheetah, because all Cheetah would have to do in order to do that, and ultimately she does this, is claw down the wings until they are worthless. And that's what she does. So it would have been much better if you had just, okay, she brings you down, you have your conversation, you punch her in the face, you lose the wings, and then you go into it. That would have been a lot better, right? And then you wouldn't have had the issue. That's my opinion, why the Asteria armor is such a fucking eyesore, is you have those wings that are just supposed to be straight gold. It makes the costume hard to look at. And it also makes the costume not very Greek or believable.
Geez, looking at that armor kind of reminds you of something like Hawk. Was it Hawk Girl? Or Hawk Woman would wear.
It doesn't even look like Wonder Woman. So at that point, what? Were you trying to make a reference to Hawk Woman or Shira?
Or, one from the...
Or Hawk Girl or Shira? What was the point of this? And like I said, it also just looked dumb because it looked like one of those Scooby-Doo gags where somebody rolls up a thing of carpet and they're like, where are we? I don't know what we're going on. Dumbest thing ever. And I think they even brought the wings back in the Maxwell Lord stuff, because the wings were actually holding her back in that fight. And so I was screaming, lose the wings. All you have to do is hug a corner and say your speech, and then you win. Sorry, there's a lot here that I had problems with, but that's my line. So and the ultimate thing that's kind of an insult to this is you have that eyesore and very little reference to Asteria, and then the Easter egg at the end of this film is we find out Asteria's still alive, and it's crap. I can't remember her name again. Linda Carter. Linda Carter, the original 80s or 70s Wonder Woman in the 1970s series, she's Asteria.
They made her as?
Yeah, because she comes out, they're like, oh, thank you, lady. What's your name? My name is Asteria.
Oh, I must have missed that part.
I didn't, because I thought, wow, that's an insult to Linda Carter. I'm not saying that her being Asteria is an insult. I'm saying that you did so little allusion to this character and then just basically said, oh, yeah, Linda Carter, you're totally Asteria. Oh, that character that we've heard very little about, man, it would have been a much better thing if all of a sudden, while buying a cup of coffee to the Steve Trevor body, she comes across another woman and she's like, you know what? Merry Christmas. And it's Linda Carter. That would have been cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
No. Apparently Patty Jenkins is not charitable in any sense. So that's my laundry list of complaints with Wonder Woman 1984. Really quick, one thing I want to do is kind of a wrap up to this, and what we will probably do in movies from here on. When we do anime nights and marathon nights, we hand out awards to people like Best Actor and things like that. In a film like this, where it's not an Oscar situation, they're not contending with people, it doesn't really make sense to just hand out the awards. So I'm going to change that up and just say, like, okay, for the performance that was given here, would you have given Patty Jenkins a Best Director Oscar for it? No. I don't even have to think about it. No. Go back to your TV writing.
Well, didn't she do the first one?
She did do the first one, but I'm thoroughly convinced the writers are what made it good, which is saying something because Zack Snyder was one of the writers. The guy I was very worried about doing anything with Wonder Woman, and yet he did a better job. That's the funniest thing, isn't it?
That's like the answer.
Zach, I'm sorry. We should have put a lot more faith in you. Because you did a better job than Patty fucking Jenkins. And Jeff fucking Johns. And by the way, #fire Jeff Johns. The guy is not a representative of DC and its lore anymore, as far as I'm concerned.
And it's really sad that...
Like, he's the DC rep when it comes to a lot of this stuff, because he is a walking encyclopedia.
I'm pretty sure everybody...
But he is so fucking woke in his last few years of writing and all that he has become an antithesis.
It's just too bad nobody can actually, who is like a big fan of like comics that isn't working on the writing stuff.
Well, you can bring on a fan of comics, except the problem is that then Twitter will then roast you because the people who are the legit fans of these characters, like, I don't know, Ethan Van Sciver, are so racist and misogynistic and toxic. We can't bring them in, even though Zack Snyder thanked Ethan Van Sciver in the Snyder Cut of Justice League. And everybody lost their shit.
I'm pretty sure. Because could you imagine what people would think if someone actually did a film almost close to how the comic would and see what people
But
thought?
we have those. Iron Man is an example of that, and it did well. Thor, to an extent, is that and did well. Captain America, the First Avenger, is that and did fairly well. Wonder Woman is that and did fairly well. Aquaman is that and did fairly well. But it just irritates me that now you can't do those origins because those origins are problematic. To who? How about you let people be big boys and girls and make that judgment for themselves?
If they don't want to see it because they're going to be offended, then they don't have to.
Or if you're going to be offended by doing the actual origin, then step down from the fucking job. It's just that simple. Okay.
And the really sad is, even though people may think and criticize a lot of that stuff, they end up going seeing it anyway. And it's like, well, that's your money loss.
Well, this is why I didn't. This is why in a lot of cases I kind of like and man, we're sidetracking again. But this is why I've kind of adopted the whole concept of I'm not seeing things on opening weekend. I'm not buying games on opening week. Because that's when these people are paying attention. And they're only paying attention because they want to see if, like, their message hit well or anything like that. And so at that point, if I hear anything controversial about a series, about a movie, about a game, I immediately, in my head, I delay when I'm going to go play it or watch it. Because then at that point, we get to judge it on its own merits, and we can say whether or not it deserved the controversy that it got, kind of thing. And why I like, how we're kind of handling things with this is that, we're not watching Wonder Woman 1984 right at opening weekend, where thoughts can get clouded on the matter. We're watching it in the comfort of our own home, where we can judge it for what it is, kind of thing. So I'm gonna hold your feet to the fire. Yes or no? Patty Jenkins gets Best Director.
Probably no.
Okay. So the Best Actor of this would probably have gone to Pedro Pascal as Maxwell Lord. Would you give that award to Pedro Pascal? Fuck no.
No. I'm pretty sure if he probably played in his original origin story, maybe.
So the Best Supporting Actor would have gone to Chris Pine for Steve Trevor. I would give this. I think he is the only one that was fucking accurate. Because if you put somebody from the 1930s into the 1980s, yes, they would have that reaction. But he also stayed true to himself and also was the voice of reason of the whole fucking movie. So yeah, Chris Pine, you get Best Supporting Actor as far as I'm concerned. Best Supporting Actress, the nominee would probably have been the chick who played Barbara Minerva, who the actress's name escapes me, but I will bring that up. So would you give her Best Supporting Actress? Kristen Wiig. No. Part of the reason is because of the writing. The writing is really bad when it comes to Barbara Minerva in this movie, but also her performance hurt that because she should have honestly been asking some questions during that as an actress to fix some of that, and I don't think that was done.
Well, it's either between her or Diana, right?
No, because Diana was the lead actress.
Okay.
So the antagonist here, because she wasn't the lead villain, she would be the supporting actress on that.
Okay, so then who else would be left?
Those are the prime awards there. So and now we'll get into kind of the final analysis. But did you say you wouldn't give it to her, or you would?
Like if we were awarding somebody?
If you were going to, like, you had the award right in front of you and Kristen Wiig's right there, would you give it to her for her portrayal of Cheetah, or would you not? No.
Yeah, but if you were to award it to somebody, who else would you give it to?
No, but I'm not asking that.
Oh.
Do you think she did a good enough job to be able to earn this award?
Probably not.
Probably not? Okay. So there you go. And final thoughts on Wonder Woman 1984. Out of 5, what would you rate it?
I'll probably just a 3.
0.
Of course you would.
0. I am giving this film nothing. This film was a train wreck. And frankly, everybody who's associated with it, including Gal Gadot, should be very ashamed of being associated with it, especially considering how much of a huge box office hit the 2017 Wonder Woman was. And you got to remember, guys, in 2017, nobody was thinking that movie was going to do well at all, and it surprised everybody. And this is the sequel that you got. Now, fuck that. 0 out of 5 for me. And you give it a 3. So at that point...
Just because I'm impartial to...
You're impartial, but you also you had things that you enjoyed out of it.
I just enjoy it for what it is for a casual person. If you don't really care about certain, if you're not a diehard fan of Wonder Woman.
And I'm not even bringing these complaints as a diehard fan of the character or anything like that. But when I can literally, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, Andrea, but when I can notice that your character has some major issues, and it probably shouldn't, then at that point, I literally look at that and go, your script needed a once over on this. Your script needed to go through these flaws in Maxwell Lord's character, and you need to fix it. Kind of thing. Because, yeah, you could have done Maxwell Lord as a villain, just not as a Trump allegory. You needed to go a different direction there. Maybe he didn't have a son. Maybe he was just a scumbag businessman. I don't know. But safe to say, Maxwell Lord, his character needed to go back to the drawing board with this, right?
He probably would have been better if he didn't have the whole father-son dynamic.
But in order to do that, you'd have to take the character back to the drawing board, kind of thing, right?
Well, yeah.
Same thing with Cheetah. You'd have to take that back to the drawing board.
Well, he could have probably almost acted the same way, only just...
And that's what I mean by, like, giving the script a once-over, is you go through it, and you go, does this make sense? If it doesn't, take it back to the drawing board and make it make sense. Kind of thing. Because you could easily do that, and it would work. We have plenty of movies of the 70s and 80s and even the 60s that did that. And this is not one of those examples. So that's why I'm giving it a 0 out of 5. This thing needed to go over again and again and get these things right.
Well, I wonder why they decided to go that direction.
You know what? Part of me, like, I'm not going to lie, Andrea, part of me wants to do a video where I fix Wonder Woman 1984 and actually do it right. But I'm not sure, since I already have a bunch of other projects that I want to do, I'm not sure if I would prioritize this. I would probably, like, put it in a list and go do it later.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of thing. But I kind of want to do that because this film deserves more, given its premise, given what it was trying to do, and it didn't get that.
So it's just basically, like, if I were to take this
I never want to rate things anything low. I never do. And in my reaction to that, Andrea, I'm not just being a douchebag reviewer that goes and just destroys it like the AVG, like the Angry Video Game Nerd. I'm not. No, I want to fix it. I want to go, okay, let's look at this and let's make it better. Like that's my viewpoint.
Like you were to take what they had made and just say, okay, this is what I would have subbed out.
Yeah. So like I'm already working on this as well for later videos. Is like I go and take something that I think was broken and I try to fix it. And I do it under the premise of like I have an endless budget and all that stuff. So like I don't have to worry about would I have the budget to be able to do it. I just, I go endless budget so that I can pull out all the stops. Kind of thing. Like, this is what I would do. Because obviously, I wouldn't have a limited budget if it was me. And I'd probably have to start taking things out. Kind of thing. But I want to show, like, pull out all the stops. This is what I do. And I do it for Wonder Woman 1984. Because these characters deserved a lot better. That's kind of my viewpoint. But for the sake of how long this podcast has ended up, and deservedly so, I think it's probably a good idea to wrap up here, right? So, thankfully, there you go. That's our final review of Wonder Woman 1984. Andrea obviously is being a little bit more charitable than me, but I hope you guys have understood this is my problem with it. And it's not that I'm doing this just to say it's a piece of shit. I would want to actually fix it. I would actually want to, like, salvage it and see if we could actually make it work. In an ideal imaginary kind of situation. In real life, I probably wouldn't deal with the executives. The executives would drive me crazy, but...
No, you could, if you were that awesome and talented and you can do all that...
I'd like to think that I am. Are you saying I'm not?
No, I'm just saying, like, if you had the ability to do, like, a animated, like, fan-made version of it. And
something to that extent. But I also do like the idea, we ought to do the DC animated movies. Because
that would be fun.
Those things are fucking great. Those things are great. And there's actually a lot of those films in there I've never watched. So that might actually be really fun to go do at some point and just compare them to what the live action adaptation did. So like go watch the animated Wonder Woman movie versus the live action one and see which one holds up better.
Oh yeah. Or one of the Batman movies.
Or yeah. Well, Batman has so many of them.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Batman has his own continuity within those, but they'd still be really good watches.
I wouldn't have a problem with seeing some of those again.
Yeah, why not? Like,
be so
we
fun.
could do those as a Geek News Movie Night. Maybe even bring Alex and Brinson in or something like that. But that'll go ahead and do it for us. So thank you guys so much for your continued love and support of the podcast. We really do appreciate it. I know that there's been a little bit of a hiatus when it came to content, but that is ending right now. I've actually been working, burning the candle at both ends, bringing Fruits Basket to a close, being able to get you guys some of the other movies that we also did while on vacation, because just to give you guys kind of a sneak peek, during this vacation, we watched Wonder Woman 1984. We technically also watched Captain Marvel, but I don't know if we're going to do that because we're still making our way through the MCU. And that feels like a passion project kind of thing.
Well, I don't think we should worry about Captain Marvel since we're...
Nah. But we watched that. I agree with you. I don't think
because we were doing our marathon.
Yeah, exactly. So we did that. I also watched the original Ridley Scott original Alien for the first time. So I'm actually going to be doing a podcast with Alex the Shadow Blazer on that. We also did Sonic the Hedgehog 2. That's probably the newest movie we did. Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and finally we also did, actually no, this would be the newest one because it came out later. Fantastic Beasts, the 3, is it officially called 3? Yeah. Fantastic Beasts 3, The Secrets of Dumbledore. Mm-hmm. So you guys can look forward to videos on all of those. And so much more. And until then, have a good day, everybody. We hope nothing but the best for you guys. And until we see you next time, take care.